Rolling, rolling, rolling.
So this shirt today is completely unironed. I believe in the action area. You know, this part just has to look good, and the rest can look terrible.
I do that so often.
Oh,
just iron right here.
I'm not an adult. No one needs to know this.
I'm never gonna be an adult. But that is my trick too. Is just iron right here.
This is not what we should teach our children, I don't think.
We're not teaching our children this.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Time Expired. I'm Dave Hovde.
I'm Richard Gearhart.
And we are in between newscasts right now. In fact, I have my other microphone on. I'm full of microphones.
My earpiece is hanging back here.
My
mics are back here.
So this week, well, you were gone last week.
Yeah, so we missed a week. Yeah.
So some people thought, well, where are they? Well, we're back. Yeah. And we're going to be doing sort of viewer suggestions this week, among other topics.
And we're going to start with a topic that wasn't a viewer topic, but it was just appropriate because we had some training today on social media use.
So it's interesting, and if you're watching us, you can be watching us on YouTube, and we've been doing this with Facebook. We are, if this keeps going, probably ultimately going to try to get to some actual podcast format. But the demographics of social media are very, very distinct. Facebook is an older demographic.
Yeah, that's because we always think of social media as being the younger the younger demographic uses social media, but Facebook now is for people like us.
Right. I mean, the movie Facebook came out, 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah, but I want to make the point that, because you're about to say like, oh, we've had Facebook all this time, right? But Facebook only started in 2006, and the reason I know it started in 2006, and the reason that date sticks in my mind, is because I started teaching at Cal Poly in 2006, and one of the employees here at the TV station said, "Hey, you can get on Facebook now," and I was like, "What? What is Facebook?" And the reason I could get on Facebook is because at the time you had to be a college student.
Right.
You were supposed to be a college student, but the way that they checked that was that you had to have an email address that ended in .edu.
Right.
So I was able to sign up for Facebook in 2006, but that isn't very much time to consider that all of this has happened between 2006 and 2023. Think about how much. I mean, this is being posted on social media on Facebook. And incidentally, in 2007, when anybody could be on social media, we actually signed a document here at the station that said we understood that we could be disciplined for being on social media during company time and or using company computers for it. Yep. Now we have an entire team that does social media.
Do you remember the signs? We used to have signs in front of, there's a news conference room, and the signs were no phones allowed because they were distracting. And then now, if you don't know, there's this big push towards digital in news as the viewership patterns has become so much more atomized. We kind of need our product to be wherever people are. But the key issue there is, yes, Facebook started as a college thing. A lot of people got on. There was this big rush into it. And for several reasons. One, it's been a while since people got on in 2006 and 2007. Yeah. Those people have gotten older. But also, I think the fact that older people are on Facebook has driven younger people into other places because thematically, some things happen on social media and Facebook that younger people don't want to be a part of, like the political infighting and things like that are one of the things.
Well, but I just think it's just a natural progression, though, right? So I don't remember what year this was. I just remember the 2006, 2007, because that's when I started teaching. But at one point in time, I was sort of joking with my college students that they were getting Instagram and being on Instagram because they still had Facebook accounts, but their parents were on Facebook, and so they didn't want to post everything they were doing on Facebook.
I knew that's where we were going.
Yeah, so they kind of picked up Instagram as a way to be on social media with their parents, but also on a different social media with their peers.
Right.
And I think that's what we're seeing now with TikTok, right? So every time that there's too much of an adult presence on a social media, then the younger demographic sort of chooses the next one.
But you've opened the door here, and that is that today we were shown some information, and this is no secret. Younger people are on TikTok. In terms of news, we need to continue to reach out to other demographics to keep the business going going forward. So we want to be where people are. And so I started and made my first TikTok
I am
today.
not on TikTok. And I actually give up a lot of stuff. Like people will send me links and stuff, and you can see TikTok, because it'll sort of cross post on Instagram. But I have not been on TikTok. At some point in time, I feel like I gotta stop getting all the newest thing. So what are you on right now? You're on Facebook,
Yes.
Instagram,
Yes.
Snapchat.
No.
Okay, I'm on Snapchat.
Okay.
And you're on TikTok, and I'm not.
Okay. So about
Twitter,
even.
X
and X.
Yeah.
So, but I'll say it definitely difficult to feed all of the things without using the same thing on all the platforms, which of course you don't want to do, because why? Why would you?
Be Real, are you on that?
No, not yet.
I'm not either, but some of my students use that.
But it is interesting, but I'll say this, and I'm a massive hypocrite, and if you know me in person, I'm the first person to say that I reserve the right to change my mind at any given moment, or concurrently be a hypocrite, which I am with social media.
You may change your mind in one day part sometimes.
Before the end of this podcast, I'm probably going to have an epiphany.
You change your mind a lot.
So what's interesting, in my personal life, I almost never post anything. And then in my professional life, I'm very, very accessible.
I have really been, and it's not on purpose. I just don't have time. I haven't posted. I mean, I kind of read social media, but mostly I guess I'm active on Instagram and Facebook, just reading it. I haven't posted, I don't think, in a long time.
Okay. So, and I also...
We're supposed to be posting, though.
I know. In other technology news of the week, I finally got a second phone. I have a work phone and a personal phone. That has never been a thing for me. And so now I'm one of those guys walking around with two.
You see more and more people like that. They've got not just one phone, but two phones. So.
I'm not that important. I mean, that's not how I see it, but it's really kind of like...
But what kind of just strikes me right now, and I thought about this a while ago, and I haven't thought about it again. Don't you think they should come up with a phone where you can have two distinct...
You can. You can have two SIM cards in a phone. You can have one phone do two functions.
That's what I mean.
But the problem is discrete app management. So let's say you wanted to have Outlook not, tell you all the time what's going on. That's kind of the nice thing about having two phones. If you're not going to look at the work thing, you can put that phone elsewhere. And so what I tell everybody at work, if they need to get a hold of me and you're not getting a response to the work phone, you can use my other phone.
Yeah, but like my Outlook for calendar and email, I've got that separated between my two different jobs and personal. And you can swap between monitoring all three, or you can I can select which one I'm looking at.
Yeah, I'm sure people are out there listening to this or watching this and thinking, oh my gosh, you guys have no idea how to manage these devices.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm actually pretty excited. I kind of want to get the new Pixel Pro 8 that's coming out. You are also an Android person at the moment.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm not really blaming you, but you talked me out. I had a Pixel, you talked me into something else. It's a nice phone, but I actually kind of miss the Pixel. I like the Pixel a lot.
I'll sell you my Pixel.
Really?
Yeah.
I might be into that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We can talk about it. In fact, it's what we're recording. I can't give it to you now because we're actually using it literally at this moment. Okay.
We're so weird.
Yeah, we are. And we're over the whole blue bubbles thing, and my goodness, I can't possibly care about that. Okay, which leads us into the viewer technology thing,
right? Which everybody's talking about, which is AI, artificial intelligence.
Okay, where do you want to start?
Where do you start? I mean, it's like so complicated. Where I would like to start is I think that every time some new technology comes out, people have this fear of it, right? And so. And not that I'm not afraid of AI, but I think that, and not that there's just something to be concerned about, but I think that our initial oh my God, it's going to, change the world. It's going to completely change how and it might, right? Like social media has changed. We just talked about that, right? Social media, cell phones, all that stuff has changed the way we do business, but it isn't necessarily the end of the world or the end of civilization as we know it, et cetera. There are some complications with AI. So I guess that's where I want to start is that I think that there are some doomsday kinds of people.
Sure.
And I don't think that is. But I also think that the answer is not ever stop trying, don't do it, don't use it, ban it, kind of a thing.
Well, I think it's going to be ubiquitous. You can fight it if you want, but for one, there's almost no realistic regulation of this thing right now. And when you consider the demographics both of Congress and of legislatures, not really the kind of group of people that
who are going to attack this problem.
And thus far it hasn't been a problem. You're kind of anticipating a problem that that isn't quite here yet,
Yeah.
almost. But look,
Right.
will it affect employment? Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So I think the way to kind of look at that, and I know you have a layer you can add on here, but I think you should probably just accept it. Look, we're not going to throw our wooden clogs into the machinery. It's not going to stop this moving forward.
Right.
So the best way maybe is to actually start adopting yourself to this new reality that's coming. Learn how to use the tools. And are we even teaching it now?
I mean, I haven't necessarily been actively teaching it, but there is this sort of push within the university system, right? So the university system is obviously really worried about
plagiarism.
How much are the students writing and all that. So, there was somebody who came out, I can't remember the person's name, but we'd been talking about it at a faculty meeting at Cal Poly, that his idea is you have to just assume that 100% of your students are using it, right? And so it isn't so much, let's stop the students from using it. It's more like, how do we teach the students to harness the power of it or to use it appropriately, right? So instead of trying to get them to not use it at all, we just sort of say, hey, this is part of life right now. How do we manage it? And not even how we manage it, but it's just kind of the flip side of what I just said, right? We tend to think of any new, my belief that we tend to think of any new sort of approach or any new development as it's going to be the end of civilization as we know it. It's going to cause problems. We look at the negative side of it. Well, there's a positive side of it too, right? And so maybe we look at it in terms of it can come up with creative ideas, or it can give you sort of a starting point as long as you're using it to sort of enhance what you're already doing as opposed to replacing it, and knowing what its limitations are. And if we actively teach that, then we don't have to be so afraid of it, I think.
Well, like machinery, right? Machinery typically in the past has always taken the toil out of work and then allowed the human experience
it takes a human being, right? So and there are some things that we don't really need, right? And we've done this for a long time. So from a news perspective, again, not from an educational perspective, from a news perspective, there are some things that writing or robo journalism AI can write, right?
Sports for sure.
Yeah, like there's a score, right? So you can and that isn't to say that it isn't going to take away some sports journalist jobs, but you can get instantaneous results because the computers can keep track of who's scoring what, the stats, put it all together, report that out.
Well, it does a narrative. I mean, I've seen it done. If a player hits a 15-foot jump shot, really there's a guy saying the shot was done from here, it scored, it made the lead this, it was part of a run of X number of points. If a player gets injured, I mean, those kind of narrative. The thing it can't do is the crowd reaction, the coach lost his mind over a bad call. I mean, it might get the fact that there was a technical call or something like that. But
you could look at it a couple of ways, right? So if you want instantaneous news and sports news, it can create the initial narrative and what happened at the game right off the bat, and then you can use extra time to sort of massage it. That doesn't mean like there's not going to be a sports journalist. But there are other things like earthquakes, for instance, right? So the USGS is monitoring that. So if that data gets reported out, some stock market stuff. There is a problem with that and a danger, though, in that sometimes the reason stocks are doing what they're doing is a little bit nuanced because there's like a human element to it that I don't know that AI catches all the time.
Well, so weather's a really good example of, your phone will spit out a forecast. It'll spit out more stuff than ever. In fact, one of the jobs that I have is taking all that information to try to figure something out. I don't believe that weather forecasting is about the numbers anymore. I think most of the numbers are pretty close to a tie. For a long time, there's this feeling like, meteorologists should use their intuition to suss out what the better information is. There have been studies done on guys who intuit forecasts versus pure computer modeling. Pure computer modeling beats a lot of this intuition because it's easier to fool the human, or the computer can start using ensembles. But the bottom line is, I believe that the narrative, the story, what is interesting, this is something that AI, and it'll probably figure it out eventually, but what is the headline? How do things change? What do people need to know? Numbers, lots of numbers are easy to just spit out there, but trying to boil them down into something that the human being can incorporate into useful information, that is something I still think is part of that nuanced zone where I think where we can coexist with the new information.
So, and I think a couple of things with that. So number one, we tend to sort of pendulum swing everything, right? So we get back and forth. And so as new technology comes in, we also tend to over adopt it, and we rely on it too strongly, and then we see what the limitations are, and then we bring back the human element. So I think if we could just stop doing that, like swing too far to each side, that
Oh,
would
come
be
on.
helpful.
Flying cars were supposed to be coming forever.
I know, exactly.
We don't even have cars driving this. I mean, really, when you think about where we thought we were going to be with autonomy in cars, we're not there yet. They call it the 99s. 99.9 isn't good enough. It's 99.99999. You need to go quite a ways before there's some kind of trust in it. We're not there with automation there. There's some automation in, say, fast food and that sort of thing, driven by, among other things, the wage and how affordability of. There's so many factors that play into the adoption of all of these technologies, and AI isn't quite there yet. We're getting there. I mean, we've seen the robots and we've seen all these things. I just saw the movie The Creator, which is about.
Oh, so I've heard. I've heard so many people say that's a good movie. I've not seen it yet.
I'm not going to give away any of the key plot points. But the general premise is AI is a part of human life, and there are some people who have adopted it and learned to coexist, and then there's another group of people who have not, and they have their fear, and it's very much Luddites against new adopters. And it brings in, there's a moral play involved, and there's emotional stuff.
So I read a good article.
It's really good. You have to buy. I'm not sure it's the greatest movie I've ever seen, but what I love about it is it throws the hat over the wall and say, let's tackle this thing. And it doesn't do it from a pure fear standpoint. I mean, if I had to say in general, the one thing I wish as a culture we would start managing a little better is fear. You and I talk about our personal, how we're dealing with life and the twists and turns of being older, working in this business, working with younger people, the changes in the industry. That we can't be driven by fear.
But it's natural to be, and obviously everybody's going to have fear because emotions are part of this human existence.
Right, but I do think AI, unlike a machine that goes into a field and harvests crops faster than people could do by hand, that's one thing. But this is a thing that can fool you, like Turing tests, which is essentially a test as to whether or not an AI intelligence can fool you if you were blind boxed. And just getting responses from it can fool you. To know that, I mean, you're talking to them on the phone now, like call banks and that sort of thing.
But so I read this really interesting article not too long ago that was talking about how do we build morality into AI, right? So like if there's machine learning and these robots are doing that, like should we actually program them to not do, should we actually program them so they know better than to fake people into?
Again, there's no legislation. A lot of the development is being done by different companies out there. There's somebody working on an AI who wants to win the stock market every day, and there better be another one working on winning the stock market every day because they're going to outthink us at some point. Yeah. So, I mean, we have to hope that we get there in terms of understanding. Yeah. Probably bigger than this podcast can tackle. Okay.
Yeah, a lot bigger than this.
I just get this feeling, we don't actually have a timer, but I get this feeling now it's into that final thing. So you're getting old when? What's your installment this week?
two to remind me because I'm so old. Wow. I can't remember.
You should see the font size, by the way.
It's just like people make fun of my phone too. Like,
I know.
With you? The text is like the text.
You should see Claudia when she works here on the set. She's got it set at like 8 or 6. I'm like, how can you read that? I'm sorry.
There's no way I could.
Go ahead.
Of course you did. All we've been doing.
I didn't make a deal with you before we did this today that I was gonna.
Here it is. Number one.
Yep.
You hear people say this all the time, but it's so true. Like when you get old, you think about moving, getting up, right? So like if I've been sitting here doing the 4 o'clock, the 5 o'clock, the 6 o'clock, and all the other stuff we have to do,
you did say that.
All of a sudden I'm like, how's it gonna feel getting out of the chair? This is gonna hurt. Or like in the morning, I don't like the alarm doesn't ring and I don't jump up anymore. I sort of think like, how's this gonna feel when I get out of bed? So that's number one, getting up. Right. And number two is, you know what? I'm getting grumpy. I never wanted to be a grumpy old man. I'm seriously getting grumpy. I got to work on this.
Okay. It's funny you mentioned the getting up, sitting down thing. That's very much the Geico ad. The guy sits down slowly and goes,
that's me. Sound effects too. Or
our trainer today, not an old guy, probably 30s, I would guess. He's got younger kids, right? He had a bunch of, presentation, and in this presentation, he has a bunch of stuff from the office. We had a person who started today, she's pretty young, sitting in there, 2 people. And these jokes just straight over their heads because the office is now classic. Some people who haven't seen The Office.
That does make me feel old. Like the number of people who are working here that just don't get they don't have any clue about sort of culture from the 80s, 90s.
But there's a positive side to it, and I've always felt like it's great to work with younger people. You teach them at the university because they can kind of educate you on some of these newer things, right. Keep you up to date. So I think it's awesome, but it's also terrifying.
Just like AI and social media. Everything's terrifying. We're not supposed to be fearful. You just said that, but
I'm scared. I'm very scared. Thanks for joining us again this week for Time Expired. Time is expired, but we do want to hear from you. Hit the comments down below. Give us your ideas and thoughts. And again, as always, if you have complaints, Richard Gearhart at ksby.com.
I ignore my email anyway. You can email me anything you want.
You know the one I haven't answered a phone call in years.
I've got 3 messages from months ago.
I think I have 300 on my phone.
I have 32,000 email messages.
Subtle brag. See you guys later.